Good morning, everyone. Today is the first Sunday of the month, so we are studying the book Between Heaven and Earth. As usual, what I have been doing is going over what we studied last month, because this is really a book that requires us to know where we are and who is who, so it makes it easier for us to follow the studies. So chapter 21 that we studied last month, we did a brief study on human psychosoma, the balance of our energy center or our chakras, which is an indispensable condition for transit to the toward becoming a pure spirit, right? And then we went over, we were primitive individual who engages in indiscriminate crimes, have in the subtle tissues of the soul similar wounds to a highly civilized European who engages in crime, that we saw it doesn't. We studied the spiritual instrument of the primitive spirit, and we studied the vast majority of human illnesses that they have psychic origins, and that the illness as spiritual disharmony persists in the perispirit after discarnation. Then we have Minister Clarencio talking to us about pain, saying after the power of God, it's the only force capable of altering the course of our thoughts, compelling us to necessary modifications with a view to the divine plan. Then on chapter 22, we learn why Clarencio decides to ask for Sister Clara's help in rescuing Odila. Odila is the mother of Evelina, who's the one that sent the prayer in the beginning of the book asking for help. Clarencio explains that he has the intellectual abilities, but he doesn't have enough love to rescue Odila, so he needs someone with more moral abilities to help in the rescue. And then they go to Sister Clara's residence. When they arrive there, they were having a brief study on the importance of the voice in conversation. She explains what anger is, and talks about indignation, controlling the voice in states of constructive indignation, and also about vocal inhibitions such as stuttering and diplophonia. Diplophonia is people that talk in two different voice tones, high pitch and low pitch, without much of the ability to control. It's a vocal inhibition or disease like stuttering. And then Clarencio asks Clara's collaboration on behalf of Odila, informing her of the situation of Evelina's unfortunate mother. And again, this graphic to remind ourselves who is who in this book. The red color represents the present incarnation. For these chapters that we're going to study today, it's important to remember Odila, who is married to Amaro. Amaro and Odila are parents of Julio that discarnated in a drowning, and Evelina, who is the one that sent the prayer. Amaro was Armando in a previous incarnation. And then Amaro is married to Zulmira, who is the person that Odila is obsessing. Zulmira was Lina in a previous incarnation, okay? Black color is the previous incarnation. So these are the characters we need to remember for these chapters that we are going to study today. Odila, who's obsessing Zulmira, who's married to Amaro, who was married to Odila, okay? Any questions here? I know it's confusing, but we can, as we go, we can go over any doubts that you have, okay? So let me share now the book. Here it is. Zoraida, can you read for us?
Yes, of course. A maternal appeal. The scene in Amaro's home did not seem any different than before. Zulmira, tormented by Odila, who was truly vampirizing her energies, lay apathetic and disconsolate on the bed like a living statue of anguish and fear as she listened to the wind howling outside. Thinner and more despondent, she looked exhausted. After a few words with Clarenzo, Sister Claudia asked us to stand back from the bed a little ways, and approaching Odila, who like Zumira could not see us, she stretched out her arms in prayer. I was truly touched as I watched the lovely scene unfold divinely there in front of us. The room gradually filled with light that radiated outward from Clara. Our new friend was like a star that had suddenly descended to the earth with two arms extended like wings ready to take sublime.
Light.
It's not coming on.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
A large, you cannot read?
Okay,
a large.
okay, I see it now. A large aura of splendor like etherealized, luminescent gold surrounded her light, sublime form. Waves of varying tonalities radiated out from it in circles that closed in on themselves, going from shades of gold and opal to bright pink, from bright pink to sky blue, from sky blue to light green, and from light green to soft violet, which then changed into other hues that I could not discern. It seemed to me that Clara had become the center of an unimaginable, miraculous shadow, rainbow. The whole house seemed too small for that blessed spring of soothing, indefinable rays. Even Odila quieted down as if under the control of that soft constraint. I was so ecstatic that I could barely articulate a few monosyllables as I sought an explanation from our instructor. Sister Clara, said the minister, equally ecstatic, has attained the complete equilibrium of her four centers, which send out luminous distant undulations. In prayer and at the flow from her lofty mind, she emits vibrations from a purified sentiment, vibrations that constitute projections of the harmony and beauty flowing from her being. If we were on her evolutionary level, we could have an immediate relationship right now with that higher plane of consciousness, which appears to us now as only a display of light and color. We could perceive the glorious message arising from a heart instead of these radiations, which to our ears are music and language, wisdom and love from a wonderful living thought. Such perfect spiritual attunement, however, it's only possible amongst those who have complete affinity with one another.
Okay. So they are, again, it's Minister Clarencio, Andre Luiz, Hilario, and they are at Amaro and Odila's, not Odila's, Amaro and Zulmira's home. Odila is a spirit obsessed. Zulmira is obsessed by Odila, former wife of Amaro that had discarnated. So here we see she was vampirizing her energies, and she was completely under the influence of Odila. She was really exhausted. So Sister Clara approaches and stretches her arms in prayer. Sister Clara is a spirit. And then Andre Luiz describes that, compares her to a star that suddenly descended to earth with two arms extended like wings ready to take flight. So she's embracing Odila with light, right? More evolved spirits have the ability to emit light from inner light. And again, it is not light in the sense that we understand the word. It is, we don't have the word to describe what a spirit, superior spirit emanates. So for lack of better word, we call it light, okay? And it's very interesting, Andre Luiz describing like comparing to a rainbow, right? going from shades of gold and opal to pink from to blue and to green and to violet and other colors that he could not discern. So it's the variety of the colors emanating from her towards Odila, that she had became the center of a rainbow, meaning she was emitting all this light that made them overwhelmed, right? Andre Luiz says he was so ecstatic that he could barely articulate words. And then Clarencio explains that she has attained the complete equilibrium of her four centers. Again, that's why we studied the centers of force in the previous chapter, the chakras, the seven main chakras, and all the other ones that we have. And when they are in complete harmony, they are sending these luminous undulations. And she talks about prayer. She sends vibrations that are projections of harmony and beauty flowing. And that if they were on her level, they could have a conscious of understand the words, the message that she was sending. But because they were not at her evolutionary level, they were seeing only the light and the energy, but they couldn't see the words that were coming from her towards Odila. And such perfect spiritual attunement is only possible amongst those that have complete affinity with one another. Okay. Any questions here, Elmo? Any additional comments? Maybe a little bit about the centers of force.
Two comments. One is in the very bottom of the first page there, when they describe it, that they see Odila when with two arms extended like wings, ready to take sublime flight. It reminds me of the appearance of high spirits as being angels with wings, right? And I keep imagining if those who have given those descriptions of luminous beings with wings were not seeing mediums who could see those high order spirits coming with that appearance, with that appears to us as wings. And two, very impressive because in the beginning of the Spirit's book, in the chapter dealing with God, when God asked the spirits if you could ever have a better understanding of our beginning or have a better comprehension of God, the answer is that no, because we lack the sense for it. And that is a very abstract and a difficult answer for us to grasp, because sense, as we understand, is something that affects our physical materiality, right? The sense of smell, the sense of taste, the sense of touching, of tact, right? And we know the sense belongs to the spirit, but still we associate with things that are very, very physical. But here, Clarencio says something that's very interesting, and that leads us to understand better what the Spirit says by sense. Right now, Andre Luiz is only be able to have the sense to perceive the light that emanates from that woman, from that spirit. A more evolved the spirit, if they were at the level of that spirit, could perceive the glorious message arriving from her heart instead of these radiations. That to me is very impressive and answers all the doubts that I had before about the word sense in the Spirit's book. Here you understand, even we know that the sense belongs to the Spirit, now we can grasp the idea, the mortal development of the spirit will enable us to open up sensorial things that belong to the spirits that we still lack right now. So even Andre Luiz could only perceive light. That would be the sense of vision for us, the equivalent. The more evolved the spirit would perceive the glorious message arising from her heart instead of these radiations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting that, yes, you brought the point of the angels, because we said many times, right? The idea from angels must have come from apparitions from superior spirits. So the halo is because we know that superior spirits will have light surrounding them, and the more prominent light coming from the head, right, from the chakra, the coronal chakra, and that's why where the halo must have come from in images of angels, and the light surrounding the spirits is exactly what Andre Luiz says here, the wings, right? So yeah, it's very interesting that the description matches with what we have the normal description of angels. Okay. Any other comments, questions here? Okay, let's continue.
Okay. The transfigured messenger seemed even more beautiful. She approached Odila and covered her eyes with her lily white hand. Watch, said Clarenza joyously. She can amplify Odilia's sight, and she will be able to see Sister Clara just as we see her. In fact, when touched by those heavenly fingers, Evelina's mother let out a cry of wild enchantment and fell to her knees. Naturally dazzled by the blazing light surrounding the unexpected visitor, she began to weep, begging, "O angel of God, please help me, please help me." "What are you doing, Odilia?" asked the emissary with an unforgettable inflection of love. "I'm here to avenge myself for love." "But is there really a point of contact between love and revenge?" Nodding timidly toward her sad companion stretched out on the bed, Odilia tried to maintain a characteristic attitude, exclaiming cruelly, "I have to get rid of this intruder who has assaulted my home. This wretched woman stole my husband and murdered my son. Those who love take justice into their own hands." "Poor daughter," replied Clara, embracing her. "One who loves sows life and joy and fights suffering and death. Whenever our worshipful love becomes a torment for those around us, we harbor no other sentiment but the frantic attachment to ourselves. We become a focal point of degrading selfishness. Our poor sister here is going through a dreadful trial. Doesn't it pain you to see her defeated and miserable?" "She married the man I love," sobbed Odilia, dominated more by the magnetic influence of the messenger than impressed by her lovely words. "Wouldn't it be better to bear in mind that he's the one who married her?" Caressing Odilia's now trembling brow, she added, "Odilia, if we do not rid ourselves of jealousy while we have the opportunity to toil in the dense body, it becomes an afflicted bonfire that consumes our hearts after we die. Calm yourself. The woman of the flesh, such as you once were, has to give way to the woman of light, such as you must now be. The door to earthly home, where you imagine you reign over as a tiny, unending empire, shut along with your physical eyes. One's stay on the earth is but one day of school. All the things we used to enjoy while there was resources from the Lord who granted us their precarious ownership. While there, we rarely remember that the treasure of domestic love is somewhat like an invaluable crop whose qualities we must extend. We may begin the endeavor of love in the home, but we have to extend it to humankind as a whole. We have only one Father, the Lord of infinite goodness, on whom we focus our hopes. Thus, we are all brothers and sisters, integral parts of one soul family. Have you ever put yourself in Zumira's shoes? experiencing her difficulties and troubles? Have you ever put yourself in the situation of the husband whom you say you love? If you found yourself without his company, with children in need of consolation and substantiation, wouldn't you feel grateful if someone came along to help you watch over them? You think only about your own problems. However, your beloved husband is in a prison of dark, inner suffering as he struggles against troubling enigmas without your willingness to help him. Don't talk to me like that, begged Odelia, with obvious signs of anguish. I hate this wretch. She stole our happiness.
Okay. So the first thing here to notice is that Clarencio says that Sister Clara amplify Odila's sight, and she'll be able to see Sister Clara just as we see her. This is not exactly the same of what we say when the spirits, the more evolved spirits, go to the lower zones and make themselves visible to less evolved spirits by dimming their light or by making themselves more I lost the word now. More visible to these less evolved spirits. What she's doing here is amplifying Odila's sight, so Odila can see Sister Clara just as we see her, as says Andre Luiz. So you see the difference here. She's not making herself visible to Odila. She makes Odila's sight expand so she can see the more evolved spirit. So she will be able to see Sister Clara, but she's also able to see Clarencio, Andre Luiz, and Hilario. Okay, it's a subtle difference, but it's important for us to understand the differences of how more evolved spirits can make us see them in different ways. And of course, when Evelina when Odila sees Sister Clara, she thinks she's seeing an angel, and she asks for help, and then she says that she's there to avenge herself for love, and then Sister Clara says very wisely, "Is really any connection between love and revenge? There's not, right? People think that they are getting revenge out of love, but there is no relationship between love and revenge. Revenge has to do with hatred and not with love. But then Odila, she tries to explain that Zulmira stole her husband and murdered her son. Okay, that's for those that were not following here from the beginning. Julio, he was 8 years old, and he died. He drowned in the beach while he was under Zulmira's care. Zulmira didn't make any effort to prevent him from drowning. So we discussed if he was a murder or it was not a murder, but of course she thinks she allowed him to die, so she feels herself guilty of murdering. Odila accuses her of killing her son, but in reality, it was more of a lack of or indifference that caused him to drown than it was really, she didn't actively committed a crime. But Odila, she sees her as a murderer. But you see here how interesting, one thing that these spirits don't see. Instead of going there, trying to go there and help her son, who's back in the spiritual world. So she knows she's dead. She knows she's back in the spiritual world. She knows that her son, the 8-year-old boy, is also back in the spiritual world. She doesn't go after him. She focuses on disturbing and obsessing Zulmira instead of trying to find her son and help him. You see that the disturbed mind, what makes us do, right? We lose the focus on what's really important, right? What's important here? Really to disturb someone that is living and, and, right or wrong is trying to make this life works, or go to rescue her son that that went back to the spiritual world in distress, right? We met with him in past chapters, and we saw how difficult is his situation. He's struggling, right? Because he committed suicide in a previous incarnation by ingesting poison. So he's struggling with the consequences of his drowning, and he's in that spiritual home for children that we visited some chapters ago. But instead of Odila trying to find him, she's obsessing and trying to obsess Zulmira. So she's only trying to take, she says here, those who love take justice in their own hands. This is completely misguided love, right? This is not real love. This is selfishness, as Clara said here, right? We become the focal point of degrading selfishness when our love becomes a torment for those around us. Again, pure love doesn't harm anyone around. Pure love helps and builds those around us. When we have a frantic attachment to ourselves, it becomes selfishness, and that's not love. That's unfortunately, we don't have the word for that. In Greek, there are 7 different words or 8 different words for love, and they have a better definition of that. But in English, we have only the word love. And then she complains that she married the man she loves, right? Without really trying to understand that she's back in the spiritual world. So Amaro is still incarnated. He has the right to rebuild his life, even if she doesn't like it. And Sister Clara says very wisely, wouldn't it better to bear in mind that he's the one who married her, especially at that time, right? This is in the 1930s, 40s, 20s. The man was mostly making the decisions. And then she gives a very important advice, right? If we do not rid ourselves of jealousy while we are in the physical body, it becomes a bonfire, afflictive bonfire that consumes our hearts after we die. And then she continues talking, you have to understand the woman, incarnated woman that you were, you are not, you're no longer, you are now, you have to become a woman of light in the spiritual world. Your life in the physical world has ended. So how can you build a better future in the spiritual world? That's what Sister Clara is trying to explain to her. That we may begin the endeavor of love in the home, but we have to extend to humankind as a whole. And then a question that we should always ask ourselves, right? Have you ever put yourself in Zulmira's shoes, experiencing her difficulties and troubles? Have you ever put yourself in the situation of the husband whom you say you love? Which is a question that we have to reflect here always, right? Because we always think about ourselves first, ourselves second, ourselves third, and then we start maybe thinking about others. And we never try to put ourselves in the others' place to try to understand from their point of view the challenges that they're facing, the situation. What Odila can think of is she stole our happiness. I hate her, she stole our happiness. What happiness? She was already back in the spiritual world. How could the happiness continue with her back in the spiritual world? But she cannot see that, right? She can only see what she wants to see and what her distorted mind brings to her. Okay. Yeah. Elmo, anything here, Elmo?
Yeah, no, not much. I think it's the good definition of tough love. That she doesn't just caresses her head and say, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you." She tells that the reality of the situation as it is, and naturally, um, that's a mirror. Odilia will feel somewhat mistreated, so much so to hear all that reality. But truth is truth, and something that I always say, maybe we have to use words carefully, not to offend anyone, but at no point you need to omit the truth. And sometimes tough love is the remedy.
Okay.
Okay. Think about it, Odilia. Have you forgotten that woman is always a mother? The grave will not give you back the body that the earth has consumed. So if you want to recover the love and trust of a husband you left behind, you have to love him with your spirit. Change the impulses of your heart. Don't think that Amaro would be capable of wanting you if he were to suddenly come to us and find you poisoned by so much resentment. But she killed my son. How can you prove that? She hated the way Amaro loved him. Yes, I'll admit that Zumila acted like that. She is still inexperienced, and ignorance while we are incarnate can impede our sight. But that is no reason to blame your son's death on her. Think about it. True fraternity would enable you to regard her as a daughter worthy of your love and guidance. Instead of forging an enemy on the sinister anvil of cruelty, you can construct a noble and loyal devotion to enrich your life. If you would take the light of your love out of the burning flames of the hell of jealousy in which you suffer by your own will, you could be a real inspiration and blessing for your beloved husband and the daughter who prays for your assistance. Perhaps because Odilia, nearly defeated, could only weep, Clara caressed her hand and added, I know that you are also suffering as a tormented mother. However, remember that our children belong to God. And if death took your son from his father's arms, it is because the divine will so ordered it. The messenger caressed Odilia's brow as if subjecting her to gentle magnetic operations. After a few moments in which we can hear only the transformed Odilia sobbing, the venerable friend stated, instead of fruitlessly devoting yourself to the vengeance that blinds your eyes and freezes your heart, why don't you work on your clearing your own path so that you could see your little angel again and cuddle him in your arms? It was obvious that Clara had touched the sensitive spot of that troubled soul, because of Elena's unfortunate mother, as if she had cast off all the burdens that weighed upon her sentiments, cried out like a wild animal smothered with pain, my son, my son. Her convulsive weeping became even more anguished, more touching. The emissary of the good enfolded her with maternal love and said to her, rejoice, dear sister, great is your happiness. You can render assistance, and that is the greatest fortune. Nothing is keeping you from helping the companion of your human experience. He is within your reach. All it will take is a prayer of true love that shows you your understanding and compassion so that you can overcome the short distance between your suffering and the son you adore. I have been waiting 22 centuries for 1 minute like this one for my longing and anguished heart, and my only loved ones still do not listen to me. Clara's voice seemed choked with unseen tears. Dominated by the heavenly messenger's vibrations, Odilia clung to her as she continued to weep convulsively, while Clara said with motherly enthusiasm, let's go, my child. Let's seek our renewal in Jesus. Clara held her close as she let her out. Lorenzo said to us, now Zumira can recover. Her adversary has left without the violence that would harm her mental field. Hilario and I left with him, although we were still eager continuing our edifying adventure.
Okay. So Sister Clara continues to talk to Odila, trying to change her thought process, right? Trying to make her understand that there is a better path to her own redemption. That the fact that she's back in the spiritual world, if she wants to continue having the love and trust of the husband she left behind, she had to love him with her spirit, love him from the distance and loving and assisting. Again, unselfish love is the only way that we can keep the connection. Selfish love just separates us from our loved ones as the journey goes on, right? And she asks, do you think Amaro will be capable of wanting you if he sees what you are doing? And then, of course, she changes the focus on Zulmira, that Zulmira killed her son, and that she hated the way Amaro loved him. And that's true. We saw that. Zulmira was jealous of Amaro, and that's why she allowed little Julio to drown. She acted out of, as Clara says, it's inexperience and ignorance. But again, that's not reason for Odila to persecute her, because you cannot correct a mistake with another mistake, adding to the issue, adding to the problem. That she should see her as a daughter that's worth of her love and guidance. So instead of having an enemy, you can construct a noble and loyal devotion to help her. You could be a real inspiration and blessing for your husband and the daughter who prays for your assistance. Again, the book starts with Evelina sending a prayer to her mother, to Odila, to help and assist her. And Odila is obsessing Zulmira, cannot hear the prayer, and the prayer goes, because Evelina deserves to have her prayers listened. The prayer goes, diverted prayer goes to the team that comes to the rescue and for the assistance. And then Sister Clara tries to change Odila's focus and bring her attention to the son, right? Why don't you clear your own path so you can see your son again and have him in his arms? And that's the first time that Odila stops and thinks about her son, forgetting about, leaving aside a little bit the anger, the hatred, the jealousy, and think about what really matters, which is, didn't her son need her help in the spiritual world? Wasn't him somewhere in the spiritual world without his mother? So you see how, we sometimes lose the focus and forget what the real objective is, that we have to focus our attention, get distracted by our own imperfections and our own weaknesses, right? And then Odila, remembers her son and cries out, where is my son, my son? Clara touched this sensitive spot. And sometimes it's important for us, when you are talking to someone that is is struggling or is in some sort of crisis, to remind them what the importance should be, where the focus should be, right? And Clara continues, you can help him. Nothing is keeping you from helping the companion of your human experience, also Amaro, right? He's within your reach. You can help him with your prayers, your true love. And then she says something that is very interesting, right? We don't know any more details. We know that it's mentioned in the previous chapter, and then she mentions here, I have been waiting 22 centuries, for 1 minute like this one, for my longing and anguished heart, and my own loved ones still do not listen to me. So you see, she has the ability and the evolvement to help and assist out of love someone like Odila, but she cannot access her loved ones that for 22 centuries she's waiting. 22 centuries meaning before the time of Christ, right? That was, since then she's trying to help her loved one. We don't get any more details about it, so we don't know anything more than what she says here. But you see how, the question we are going to ask: why can't she help her loved ones if she's able to help Odila and others? Because we can only help those that are ready to be helped, that has some opening to be helped, right? Remember the book Liberation, we keep repeating it. Gregorio, the leader of the lower zones, that he was finally rescued after centuries, and what allowed him to have this opening? Out of boredom, he allowed himself a small opening, a slight opening, that allowed his mother to go there and help him. Sister Clara is waiting here for 22 centuries, and her loved ones haven't given yet her the opportunity of help them. She's there. She's always there. She's been waiting there for 22 centuries. And sometimes we ask, where is the help when I need help? It's always there. We are the ones that do not allow the help to come to us. And of course, she gets emotion, but she takes the opportunity to get Odila and to take Odila out and said, let's go, let's seek our renewal in Jesus, and took her out. And then Clarencio tells, now Zulmira can recover. Without the obsessor, Zulmira now can recover, because the adversary have left without the violence that would harm her mental field. This is important also, right? That's why, when we talk about exorcism, that's why the exorcism doesn't work, because you're violently separating the obsessor and the obsessed, and you are not healing the cause. So eventually it comes back. Here, Sister Clara is addressing the cause and is healing the obsessor. So without violence, removing the obsessor from the obsessed, that allows the obsessed, in this case Zulmira, to recover. And then Andre Luiz finishes the chapter saying that Hilario and Andre Luiz left with him, although he's still eager to continue on this adventure. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. Elmo?
No, nothing here.
Okay, any questions here? The end of this chapter. Okay, so now let's take care of Zulmira.
Okay. Reparative care. Odilia, under Sister Clara's sponsorship, was admitted to a treatment institution for a few days, and for 7 nights in a row, we went with Clarencio to visit Zulmira in order to assist with her recovery. Amaro's second wife was definitely getting better, quieter, and calmer. However, she still did not want to do anything. She was no longer excitable, but was still undernourished, apathetic, and extremely despondent. Attentive to our usual curiosity, Clarencio informed us she is free now, but she needs some kind of stimulus to pull her out of her lethargy. She lacks the will to fight, to stay alive. Even so, let's have faith. Odilia herself will assist with her recovery as she regains her spirit's sight. Odilia will accept the imperative of selfishness and fraternity to build the kind of future she wants. In fact, Zulmira did remain free and tranquil. The parts of her body were functioning with irrepressible harmony, but she still lacked something. The machine was up and running again, but she was still idle, requiring adequate measures.
Okay, so it's just a quick stop here for us to examine now Zumira, right? Because last chapter we're talking about the obsessor. Now we're going to talk about the obsessed, Zumira. The fact that they were able to separate Odila from her put away the disturbances that were influencing Zumira. But so physically, she was getting better. That's what this whole idea here. She's calmer, she's quieter. It says here, the parts of her body were functioning with harmony, but mentally, she was not healed, right? She had lost her will to fight, to continue living. Clarencio said she needs some sort of stimulus to pull her out of her lethargy. And that Odila would eventually come and assist with her recovery. Odila will accept the necessity of fraternity and selflessness to help Zumira recovers. But what is important here, right? The machine was up and running again, but was still idle, requiring adequate measures, which it is to help us understand that the removal of the obstacles that prevent us from living a normal life is just part of the healing process. Our will to fight, it's another very important part of it. If we don't have our will to fight, if we don't have our desire to fight against our struggles, we are not going to be able to heal, fully heal. Yes, Ebony.
I find it interesting to note that in the very first few lines of the chapter, we are shown that that reparative care is given not just to the obsessed, but to the obsessor as well. Odelia, the obsessing spirit, it says that she was taken to a treatment institution. And so we see that, or that we are reminded that obsessing spirits are, regardless of the reasons why they're doing it, they're, in the end, very needy people who are suffering as well, and also needs care as part of reparative healing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I forgot to mention that she's under treatment also. The treatment has to be on both sides, right? If you don't heal both sides, you don't solve the problem, right? Because in the end, it's the connection between obsessor and obsessed is a two-way street, right? It's not a one-way street. It's not the obsessor obsessing and the other one being a passive obsessed. The reasons come from before, right? And if you read the story in the previous chapters, we understand that who Zumira was and what she did to Amaro and to others. So she's facing the consequences of her own actions, because you are not going to be obsessed if you don't allow an opening door to the obsessor to penetrate your thoughts and to connect with you. So here, yes, both are being treated. And again, it goes back to exorcism, right? You have to treat both. In exorcism, you just separate those and you don't treat either. So it doesn't solve the problem. You have to solve the problem by treating and both of them at the same time. And then even better if you can put them to work together in the future, like Clarencio says, Odila herself will assist with her recovery. That's even a better solution for the problem. Okay, Elmo, anything here?
No, the old saying, the criminal or the guilty always return to the site of crime, right? Is the necessity when you recognize the error that you have to go and do the important aspect of reparation. You want to fix the mistake. You want to clean up the mess that you have made. So it is totally expected that Odelia, after going through her treatment in that clinic, so to say, she will have that need to return to the site of crime and make reparations.
Yeah. Okay.
A week later, Sister Clara invited us for a chat. She said that Odelia had been truly transformed. Submitted to magnetic assistance in order to probe her past, she had acknowledged her need to collaborate with her husband so that both could be victorious on the planes of the spirit. She yearned to see her son again, so she was willing to do all she could to be useful to her husband and daughter. Consequently, she would fight against the spontaneous revulsion she felt towards Umila, whom she would help as a sister, duly readjusting herself in order to strengthen and assist her. Her benefactress was quite pleased. She recommended that as soon as Amaro left his physical body that night, we should bring him to the treatment institution where Odelia was staying. A conversation between the two would produce better results. Evelina's mother was changing and would give proof of readjustment, thus initiating the first effort at conciliation. Clara's request was happily agreed to. Sometime after midnight, when the railroad worker's body was under the gentle influence of sleep, we took him in spirit to the institution. We waited for Clara in Ordelia's well-lit, flower-filled room. On seeing his beloved wife, Julio's father, who had been only half conscious, fell to his knees, as lucid as possible under the circumstances, and exclaimed in rapture, "Odelia, Odelia." Amaro responded his former wife, now completely transfigured. "Yes, it's me, and I'm asking for your courage and faith, serenity and bravery in the task at hand. But I'm all worn out," he complained in corporeous tears. Supported by her venerable friend, Odelia stood up with some difficulty and, soothing his hair, asked in concern, "Worn out from what?" "I'm just tired of life. As you know, I got married again because I thought it would ensure our kids' future. But the woman I married is nothing compared to you. I was duped. Instead of happiness, I have found only a disappointment that I cannot hide." And giving her a heartwarming look, he said sadly, "Our Julio died in an accident when surrounded by my best aspirations. Our daughter is pinning away joyously in her room, and their stepmother is wasting away in bed. Odelia, can't you see how I'm suffering? I've asked heaven for death so that we can be together again in eternity, but death hasn't come." Eyes moist with tears, his wife, understandably more beautiful because of the redemptive thoughts now floating for her being, said to him with an unforgettable infliction, "Yes, Omaria, I do see. I have suffered much, but I now realize that we ourselves aggravate our pain. Why should we change distance into rebelliousness and longing into poisonous bile? Why don't we acknowledge God's supreme majesty in the guidance of our destinies? We haven't known how to cultivate the love that is a sacrifice on the earth for constructing our spiritual paradise. We have demanded when we should have given. We have wounded when we should have healed. Amaro, we must calm our hearts so that life can help us understand it. We must heal ourselves so that we may receive the help we need from others. Due to the roughness of my uneducated sentiments, I was nourishing the thorn bush of jealousy, tormenting your mind and troubling our home. But in just a few short days, I got a fuller grasp of our problems by using the key of goodwill. I want to make myself a better person, to progress, to live again." Amaro contemplated her lovingly and reverently and replied, downcast, "Well, even so, the dreadful reality is still the same. We inhabit the two different worlds. Wretched that I am, I feel lost and unhappy. I used to feel that way too, but I use silence and prayer to find the pathway to renewal. What should we do with Zumila? She's come between us as a hindrance to our true togetherness. No, don't think like that. She wouldn't come into your life for no just reason. Clarenzo touched Amaro's brow, enabling his mental field to return instantly to the memories of the depths he contracted while in Paraguay. Amaro trembled and continued listening. Zumila has come into the temple of our love, continued Dila, wonderfully inspired. It's because our love owes her the blessing of the happiness that we ourselves possessed. Yes, Amaro agreed as he reviewed the fragmentary memories that loomed in his mind. Let's regard her as our daughter and as Evelina's sister, whose steps we must lead to the good. The home is not only a domicile for bodies, but a nest for souls, and within its sweet shelter we grow wings that will carry us to the heights of glory eternal. We should accept trial and pain as blessed instructors on our pathway to God. But you know how much I love you. You know that you are my greatest treasure in life. But today I can see a broader horizon. What's the use of an oasis that may be lovingly to look at but not known about? What's the use of building a palace out of the middle of the desert where we would use our happiness to humiliate the travelers who passed by, dying of hunger and thirst? How do you see the love that would be perverted in isolation with the intent of keeping happiness all to yourself? We need to change, Amaro. It's never too late to start over for the sake of the good. We must work, making use of time and life. Perhaps touched in his innermost fibers, Evelina's father wept convulsively, eliciting our pity. Odelia embraced him tenderly while Clara invited us for a walk through a large garden nearby.
Okay, it's a long passage here, but it's a lot of things that are together here, right? So Sister Clara invited them for a conversation and asked to bring Amaro. One thing is important here. She was willing, Odila, willing to do all she could to be useful to her husband and daughter. They didn't mention Zulmira, right? Because she realized that she has to help Zulmira also. But between realizing and becoming part of what you are feeling, there is a path, right? So the first thing that you need is to realize the necessity to do something, to change your sentiments, to change your feelings towards someone. But from realizing it, which is a very important first step, to doing it, it's a journey that can be a long journey or not so long journey. So Odila knows that she has to help Zulmira, but she still would have to fight against the revulsion that she feels towards Zulmira. She's very happy and prepared to help Amaro and Evelina, the former husband and daughter, because she loves them. But she's struggling to find the ability to help Zulmira, who she still carries some hatred in her heart, even if she knows that she should not carry that sentiment. So again, we see in many books of Andre Luiz the so-called dreams, right? The conversations that happen between spirits that are in a sleep state and spirits that are in the spiritual world. So Clara asks that they bring Amaro while he was sleeping. So Andre Luiz and Hilario go and take him. And again, it's interesting because if you read the Andre Luiz books in order, you see that things that they are doing here that he no longer describes were better described in previous books, right? In the book Workers of the Eternal Life, you see the description of how this process is done when when they take those that are close to discarnating, close to the death of the physical body, to the spiritual world. Andre Luiz describes in more detail. Here, he just says that they take Amaro there because the process is the same that was already described in previous works of Andre Luiz. So they bring Amaro that meets with Odila, and he's half conscious when he sees his former wife. He declares himself to her again, still loves her, but he's tired, he's worn out, he wants to die, he's tired of his life. He said he's married again to help his kids' future. And you see here, his descriptions tell exactly what Odila should have known if she was paying attention and not blinded by her jealousy and by her lack of understanding of what's going on. He never stopped loving Odila. He just decided that it was important for him to get married again, to have someone to raise his daughter that was at the beginning of her teenage years, and his son that was very young. And what Odila saw was someone trying to steal her home and her husband, instead of seeing from his eyes what he was doing out of the necessity of repairing the early loss of his wife, leaving children behind. And he continues saying, Odila, can't you see how much I'm suffering? I want to die. And then Odila suddenly becomes the adult in the room, right? Saying she has also suffered, but how can we change distance into rebelliousness and longing into a poisonous bile, which was exactly what she was doing, right? And then she asked, shouldn't we accept God's guidance in our destiny? And she said, we must calm our hearts, we must try to do better. She was nourishing jealousy, tormenting his mind and troubling the home, but in just a few short days. That's very important also, right? How can we change in just a few short days? It is possible if we put our will and our desire to do it. We can change in just a few days. And she understands that she wants to make herself a better person. And he continues complaining, saying that they live in two different worlds, right? She's in the spiritual world, he's in the physical world. He feels lost. And then she says, I used to feel that way too, but use the silence and prayer to find a pathway to renew. And then Clarencio interferes, making Amaro remember his previous existence as, what was his name again? I forgot his name. As Armando in his previous existence that created all the karma that he's facing now, right? And then Odila continues trying to convince him, and actually convincing also herself, that if Zulmira has come into the temple of our love, it's because we owe her the blessing of the happiness that they both had. So if Odila again could see that Amaro really was still in love with her and still just trying to take care of his home, she would probably not cause all the trouble that she was causing. And the beautiful thing she says here, let us regard her as our daughter and as Evelina's sister, is a nice way to find a resource to help someone that you still harbor inferior sentiments towards, right? So she, instead of seeing Zulmira as Amaro's new wife, she's trying to see Zulmira as also their daughter and Evelina's sister, because in reality, Zulmira is closer to Evelina's age than she is to Amaro and Odila's age. So it would be a way of them working on the reparation. And she talks about the home being a nest for the soul, a shelter, and that, again, we should accept trial and pain as instructions for God, for our pathway to God. And then she talks very beautifully of how you cannot build something isolating yourself from the world, right? What's the use of building a palace out in the middle of the desert where your happiness humiliate the travelers who pass by? That's no way of building anything, right? Your happiness can only be built if those around you are also in happy or in a state of peace, of satisfaction. You cannot isolate yourself from the world, because that's not the way that you are going to find true happiness. It's never too late to start over for the sake of the good. That's important also, right? So that was the conversation when Amaro is crying convulsively, causing them to feel pity for him. Okay, Elmo, comments here. A lot of information.
No comments. It's only the belief that someone can change oneself from like 180 degrees in one week's time. It's a little bit hard to grasp, and the only way to grasp that is to believe that a certain degree of moral involvement was already there. Otherwise, that would be not, to me personally, and then that's personal. I don't think it would be possible. So I have to imagine that Odila already had some degree of progress that enables her to make such a quick change like that.
Yeah, it's clear here that she hasn't changed how she feels towards Zulmira, right? She just understood that she had to change, but she hasn't changed yet. She's trying, right? That's what I understand from what we read. Yes, Ebony.
Hi. I don't have difficulty in accepting that somebody could change in such a short space of time, because I think somewhere maybe at the beginning of the chapter, it was said how much pain can be a powerful motivator for us to renew ourselves. And I know until someone actually starts to get tired of suffering, they will never really see the benefit of embarking on their own personal renewal. It is only when the pain has gotten, so intense, and they've gotten so tired of it, and they are shown a better way of living, that's when they're motivated to embark on their own regeneration. So I think it is quite possible. You just have to be motivated sufficiently.
Yeah. And again, it goes from understanding the need to change, right? Realizing the necessity. So first step was for Dila to understand that she had to stop interfering negatively in the family, that she needed to change how she felt towards Zulmira. So the first step is to understand. It doesn't mean that she already had, because it doesn't say here that she's not loving Zulmira here. She's just understood the necessity of change, and she was willing to work on changing her feelings towards Zulmira. But she changed the focus. That's what she was able to change, and that was what happened quickly. And I agree with you. Pain is what makes us, real pain is what sometimes what we need in order to change, right? It reminds me that story of the dog, right? That was sitting on the top of a, whining, sitting on the top of a piece of wood with a nail. And someone asked the owner of the house, why is the dog whining? And they answer, well, because he's sitting on the top of a wood that has a nail in it. So why doesn't he leave? He stand up and leave. And they answer, because it's not bothering him enough, right? So until it bothers enough and you want to make a change, you are going to continue suffering and struggling a little bit without making any real effort to change. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, the last part of it.
Okay. We found ourselves in full view of the night sky. Amaro and Odelia went to a fragrant corner to talk in private. We could see that Clara wanted to leave them alone together for more secure spiritual adjustment. And while they exchanged comforting confidences, we went a short distance away to admire the beauty of the night. The firmament sparkled wonderfully. Far-off constellations waved to us, indicating a glorious future. Gentle vibrations passed lightly over us, caressing our heads like intangible fingers of the wind. Flowers of rare beauty poured from the calyx rays of daylight, clarity like grateful, tiny reservoirs of solar splendor. Sister Clara fascinated us with her awe-inspiring words, with enchanting simplicity. She told us about her trips to other realms of work and accomplishment, praising the Heavenly Father's love and wisdom in each narrative. We remained enwrapped for a long time, exchanging impressions about the exalted life that constantly revealed itself to be most surprising and beautiful in every rim of creation. A new day was drawing near. We went back to the couple in order to take Amaro back home. As they finished their conversation, both had looks of peace and radiance. Sister Clara kept her ward in her arms, and the two of them followed us in journey back. When we reached his home, Amaro said goodbye, smiling and calm. We were just ready to leave when Clara advised us, let's wait. Odelia will begin her task anew today. The clocks showed 6 a.m. Like a student on the day of a test, Julio's transfigured mother looked at us with extreme expectation. Amaro retook his physical body, opening his eyes in great mood. He couldn't recall the details of his trip, but he was sure that he had been with his first wife somewhere and that he had seen her to be reanimated and happy. He stretched his arms with the delightful peacefulness of someone who has found the end of a long, afflicted, nervous tension. He got out of bed, noticing that the day was starting out joyfully and lovingly, but didn't realize that the joy and lovingness has been born within himself. He felt like laughing and singing, and after finishing up in the bathroom where he had hummed a familiar song that reminded him of his first marriage, he returned to the bedroom. Odelia embraced him, lovingly exclaimed, let's go, my dear. Let us extend our happiness. Zumila's awaiting for our love.
So they leave the couple to talk amongst themselves in private again. They listen parts of the conversation. There are things that should be discussed between both of them only in private. All right. So we always have things that we can. You see here how we are protected in our true, sincere conversations from interference from the spirits. Lower or more evolved spirits respect us, but lower spirits will be prevented from participating when they are there only to disturb. And Andre Luiz describes the beautiful night, and Sister Clara's talk with them. So they went to take back Amaro's home, right? But he was in a spiritual experience. And when I was reading this, I was thinking, what would happen if Amaro had something happen in his house and he woke up in the middle of the conversation, right? And then I was reflecting here. Well, the time in the spiritual world is different than the time in the physical world, right? So there will be, of course, Sister Clara, Clarencio, and they know they know in advance what's how to prevent this from happening and how to keep him to take full advantage of the conversation. Just a side note here. So when he wakes up, he, again, talking about our dreams, right? We mentioned many times when the experiences we have in the spiritual world, we many times we don't bring them back to the physical world. We are experiencing with our spiritual brain, not with our physical brain. So in order for us to bring it to the physical brain, we have to sometimes to wake up and write. That's why they say we should wake up and write our dreams, or we should, if we wake up in the middle of the night. But sometimes it's important for us not to remember, because sometimes it can be more disturbing than helping. We just went some chapters ago the experience of Antonina, a meeting with her son Marcos that had discarnated, right, in the spiritual world. And when she's back in the physical body, Andre Luiz asks if she's going to remember her dream, and Clarencio tells him that no, she's not going to fully remember. She's just going to have happy remembrance of meeting her son, but not the details, because the details will cause her more harm than good, because would make her not want to continue living and going back to stay with her son, and that was not helpful to the other 3 kids that she had and her life in the physical world. So here, Amaro had to remember that she had a meeting with her first wife. He was happy with the dream, and the dream made him change his dispositions. He woke up in a peaceful mode, right? The joy and loveliness had been born within himself, not out of the day that was starting out, right? And so he changed his mood with a good night of sleep and with a meeting with his wife. And then Odila reminds him, let's go, let's help Zulmira that is awaiting for our help. And we'll see that in the next chapter now, when they are going to the reconciliation, which is the reunion, and Zulmira and Odila making peace. Okay. Elmo, anything to add here?
No, João.
Okay. Anyone else has any questions, comments? We're done here. No? Okay. So
John, actually, John, this is Carol.
Yes, Carol. Hi,
yeah,
Carol.
quick question. Hi. Yeah, the obsession part, does that usually or normally occur in the sleep state? Can it occur during the day state as well, or the active state?
Yes, it can. It actually most of the times it happens when we are awake, because it's our vibrations and our thoughts that connects us, open the doors for the obsessors to find us. If you read the book Obsession by Divaldo Franco and Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, the girl, 15-year-old, she becomes obsessed when she was just playing the piano. And it suddenly happened with her. The influence. So the spirit is there, ready to attack, but we are the ones that open the door for them to connect to us. And it's most likely in the awake state than in a sleep state. It's unlikely that will be in a sleep state.
But then, little by little, the willpower of an individual is tapped down by the obsessor. Is that correct? In other words,
yes,
the will to live lessens, etc. So it's
yes.
step by step. It's not usually like in a week or something. It's over a time period, perhaps.
It's a it's over a time period, yes. And if you remember the last book we read,
Frozen.
that she was obsessed. What was her name? In the book Creation, a group of authors that. Sorry, Elmo. What was her name?
Oh,
Okay, you
sorry, I
lost
was
me.
frozen for a minute. It's okay.
You lost me. Yeah.
It's okay now.
Okay. So I don't know what was her name. She was obsessed through a period of time, and she was losing her will to live, and she was close to die when they went there to rescue her. Right, in the book Liberation. So it's a process. Yes, it takes time, Carol, and it gets more and more serious as time goes by.
So that like perhaps the chakras one by one are tapped into, or the vital chakras are the focal point, perhaps, of the obsessor.
Yes.
They know because there's a simpatico there, I guess.
Yeah, there's symbiotic connection that they, even if they don't know, they are going to, the access will be made through the chakras that we allow them, the weaker ones, right? The openings we allow. Normally, it's the one in the top chakras that connects us to the spiritual world. But yes, it will connect through the chakras that we allow them to, make them weaker or something like that.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks, John.
Anything here, Elmo?
It's pretty much if you have a disease that, let's say, that affects your kidneys, it will eventually affect the whole body, right? I mean, if you mess up with the kidney, you're gonna directly mess up with the heart, and if you mess up the heart, you eventually mess up with the lungs and so forth and so on, right? It's one unit. So the same thing with the chakra system or the centers of energy system, right? It is the primary energies will come from the corona when it distributes itself throughout the system. If one of the system is blocked, is obstructed, there will be a problem that will affect that particular chakra, but it will have an effect in all of the others. So there is this, this cascade effect, so to say. Not that the obsessor knows all this intricate mechanism. They just want to disturb the individual. They want to cause harm. They don't care how or where or when. They just want to cause harm. And they will be attached primarily by the coronal/frontal. Now that's the centers that deals with our mediumistic center, right? Those two together, and will have an effect in the entire system. So that's, you see there that Zumira is depleted of energy consistently. The whole system was down for a while, so to say, right? Not only the area was directly affected, but the whole system becomes affected.
Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, John.
Thanks. Okay, so next Sunday, the second Sunday of the month, we're going to study the Gospel according to Spiritism. Okay, and again, apologies for those that joined on Thursday without knowing that we didn't have the study on Thursday, but we are back to regular studies this coming Thursday on the Spirit's book. Okay, Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, certainly, sure. Thank you very much, John and Elmo, and thank you everyone for participating. And Sarita, thank you for reading today. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks for the opportunity once again to be together as brothers and sisters for a study of the book Between Heaven and Earth, chapters 23 and 24. More evolved spirits can enhance the seeing perceptions of suffering spirits who have lost their focus to progress. It's advantageous to reconcile our jealousy, hate, anger, and vengeful thoughts and actions before we die. We should sincerely endeavor to clear our path and energetic vibrations. Unselfish love and light keeps good connections with loved ones, which is an optimum focus. We need to be proactive in order to attract and invite the spiritual assistance. It's never too late. Sometimes change is prompted and motivated through pain and suffering. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all who are participating. We pray for inner peace and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical as well as the spiritual worlds. We pray for SGNY, our center, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, expand, and be protected each day and each night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we go forth now and remind ourselves to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. So be it.